Welcome to the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy and the founder of the Write Your Own Story company. Girl, I can tell you right now, you are definitely enough. Here we value service, sisterhood, connection, laughter, and that super genuine, keep it real, tell you like it is honesty. My hope is at the end of each episode, you realize you can do whatever it is you dream about and that you are not alone with what you struggle with. I'm hoping that you are snapping and clapping and hell yesing your way through each one of these episodes. So if this tracks with you, let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with author Jaime Townzen. Jaime, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Betsy. I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Likewise. I'm just going to give us a quick fancy little intro, and then I would love to hear just a little personal journey from you, and then we'll dive right into these questions. But I am so excited. This audience is going to be like head nodding along in a major way. Okay, so today's episode is dedicated to the women who haven't put their own needs or goals first in a very long time. Maybe you've been deep in the trenches of motherhood, caring for aging parents, grieving loss, or simply stuck in survival mode, doing what's necessary to keep your family afloat. If you're feeling exhausted, invisible, or like you've lost parts of yourself in the process, you're not alone. My guest today, Jaime Townzen, author of Absorbed. After 13 years as a stay-at-home mom and experiencing the devastating loss of 8 loved ones in just 6 years, Jaime found herself overwhelmed with grief and anxiety and unsure how to move forward. But instead of staying stuck, she slowly began to rebuild piece by piece, making time for creativity, honoring her voice, and putting herself back on the list. In our conversation, Jaime will share how she reclaimed her own dreams and how it not only helped her heal, it also brought more joy into every area of her life and gave her teens permission to live, believe in their own dreams. This is a conversation about resilience, reinvention, and the radical power of choosing yourself, even when life feels impossibly heavy. I love this. Jaime, so that is our fancy intro, but I would also just love to hear from you. Tell us about yourself.
Oh, all right. Well, here we go, Betsy.
Let's do it.
I've always been a lover of stories and creative passions. But as you mentioned in the intro, back in 2007, when my oldest daughter was born, I put my career and personal goals on hold because I held that little being in my arms and wanted to spend as much time as I could with her, knowing that there was no way to get that time back. And so that started a trajectory for me. My second child, my youngest, was born less than 2 years later. And I kept telling myself that once they were both in school full time, I would go back to work and I would start putting myself, first again. I have a husband who's incredible and I was supporting his career. And that made it possible for me to be home. So I knew I wasn't setting our family back in any way, just putting myself on hold. And when I tried to go back to work, just even part-time in 2010, 2014, in 2014, I tried to go back to work part-time, and unfortunately a series of events happened. The house that we were renting, the owners needed to sell it immediately, and they went default on our lease that we had, so we had to move. Then as we were in the process of moving, 2 weeks before the move, my grandmother passed away. And then 2 days before the move, my father-in-law passed away. And so my husband had to go be with his mom to plan his father's funeral while I was moving with a kindergartner and a second grader to a whole new city, all new schools, everything. And then after that is when, sadly, my more family members just kept getting sick and passing away. Some of them elderly and understandable, but some of them really tragically. Probably the two hardest for me being my stepfather, who really was my day-to-day dad in life, got Parkinson's and passed away after 9 years in 2020. And my stepsister, his daughter, was diagnosed with ALS at age 43 and passed away at age 50 in 2019. So 1 year before he died, she died.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that one was just so hard because she had 3 children, and I had moved close to be near her and help as much as I could while she was slowly losing her abilities, and they were learning to drive and needed help with that. They,
Oh my gosh.
were high school, and so when 2020 and the pandemic hit, I was at the end of these 6 years of so much loss and grief. And then the pandemic hit, and I was just like, what is this world throwing at me? Like,
I
I
know.
can't
My
catch my
gosh.
breath. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
God.
was still being a mom all day, every day, and, and
And
doing all
navigating
that.
a new city and a new school system. And oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, that really is so much. And I feel like everyone went into COVID with like, sort of a regular ish nervous system. But I can't imagine, kind of mentally, emotionally, and even physically, I'm sure where you were given sort of the continued pace of like trauma after trauma after trauma. I'm so sorry. That is
Oh, well,
deeply
thank
heavy.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm sure you have a lot of listeners who have gone through their own,
Yes.
horrible tragedies and had different ways of approaching how to deal with it. I was fortunate to have a very good therapist and sought a lot of therapy during those years. I was walking my dogs every day during the pandemic. I didn't really have anything else to do. So some days I was walking as many 7 miles a day,
Mm.
listening to audiobooks and podcasts. And I have a close group of girlfriends that we were still getting together. But that constant hum of stress and anxiety and that weight of grief that was on me just would not lift
Ugh.
until July of 2020, when I, out of sort of desperation, I guess,
Yeah.
while doom scrolling,
Yeah.
decided I needed to try out a watercolor course online. And that ad that just seemed like a peaceful, fun exercise to set everything aside for a little while truly changed my life, because I started painting, once every couple weeks, and then I was decided I wanted to paint a couple times a week, and then I started painting every day.
Wow.
And as I sat and painted and made that time and space for myself to do something that was just for my pure joy with no
Mhm.
deliverable, that anxiety and stress actually melted away. And I could feel my body come to just a normal, natural state again that I hadn't experienced in so many years. It was just such a gift.
What an
Um,
incredible gift. And like, that is an unbelievable story. I can't, like, creativity is so important to so many things, but I think especially to women, because it is so much of our feminine energy is to be creative. Are you a painter
mhm.
by nature, or was this just like, this looks fun and I'm going to try?
I my mom's twin sister is an artist and an English teacher, or was. She's retired now, but
Mhm.
I always definitely admired her and her interests. I have a oldest stepsister who also did art until she became a mom and got a career and set it aside.
Mhm.
And I've had a lot of artists in my life, but I always thought that I was just crafty and just
Totally.
creative.
Yeah.
I never thought that I was a painter until, once you start putting in the time, as
Yeah.
there's the theory of 1,000 hours. I was getting so much joy out of this. I was putting in those 1,000 hours pretty
I love that.
easily, and
Yeah.
I became a painter as a result.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. That is so incredible. And while your girls are watching you dive into painting, are they like painting alongside of you? Are they curious? What's their reaction to all this?
That first session I actually did with my youngest daughter, who at the time had just finished fifth grade. She was 10 years old, and she was not thrilled with the results because she was seeking perfection. And
Uh, we can
I,
all
I
relate.
was just enjoying the process. And so I had no expectation of perfection. So she didn't like doing it with me. And when my other daughter tried, she wasn't all that interested either. But what would happen is I was getting so much peace and joy from it. And that every exercise I did following along on these free tutorials, I was putting up in our hallway right between their rooms. And it was just colorful and joyful paintings that brought, more levity to our home at a time when we really needed it.
Absolutely.
And they started covering all the walls up the stairwell. Like the paintings were just everywhere.
Aw.
and and they, I think what they saw, as we've discussed since, they saw me return to myself, a person that was much more than just a mom. Because as I painted, my creativity started like reigniting in my mind in different ways. And I decided I wanted to write again. And I decided I was ready to pursue my master's degree, which I never even thought I was going to go back and do. So
Yeah.
by July of 2020, I was enrolled in my master's program for both literature and writing. And by September of 2023, was in my final term. I finished in 15 months. And in that final term, I wrote the first 10,000 words of the book that is now my published novel. And that
Incredible.
all, they watched this just whole process of me making time and space for something that I loved and that lit me up from within. And I
Mm.
think that brought them so much joy and pride to see their mom that happy. So
Yeah.
it helped our whole family in that regard.
I love that so much. I have so much that I want to unpack from this. Okay, so starting with the book, because I mean, how incredible is this that you were like, you've gone and it was, you finished, did you say in 2023?
My rough draft ended up being about 90,000 words, but I did the first
First
10,000 words
10,000.
in that final term, and I
Yeah.
finished the rough draft by January. Just 3 months later, I was done
Unbelievable.
with 90,000 words. And
So it,
then I spent a full year completely revising and getting it to the final product.
oh my God, I have a million questions about that process.
Yeah.
But I think, what I love is that, like, in just where people, for someone who is out there who is like, I feel so buried, buried in my feelings, my grief, my anxiety. I've lost a bit of myself. Like, I'm like, in 3 years, you can be a completely different person or like truly returned back to yourself, I should say, in a completely different state. How about that? Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. And I know 3 years also sounds kind of long, but what my favorite part I know of this whole episode is going to be is that you were like, I gave up on perfection and I just enjoyed the process, which I think is like, what got you to that point? Because I think that that's really hard to do, but it is absolutely the goal. Absolutely. I think that when you say that, my heart swells with joy for you. And I want that for me. I want that for everyone. And I think we can all tap into that in certain areas of our lives, but it's so hard. So many of us are such overachievers or high
Yeah.
performers or just want to do well because it is, feels good to do good and you get and the feedback that you get, et cetera. How did you get to the point where you're like, I don't care about anything. I just want to enjoy this?
Well, I think there's two major factors in that. The first one being, as I mentioned, my sister passing away. You just get a
Mm,
real sense of life is short. We don't know what's coming next, and we only get one chance at this. And
mm,
so I want to enjoy it as much as I fully can. I want to be present. I want to take the time to watch the sunset, take a picture of it, and then come home and paint that sunset
cool.
because I am fully embracing that beautiful moment in my life. And
Yeah.
that is a gift that I've gotten from a really tragic, sad thing that happened in my life. And then the
Yeah.
second thing is that teacher, her name is Sarah Cray, and I've even written an acknowledgement to her in
I
the
saw
back of the
that.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That was
I'm
cool.
lucky enough. I've gotten to meet Sarah. She's a friend of mine now, and she knows that one of the characters in the book is based on her. Just the light that she sheds in this world by saying certain things that really teach people to let go of perfection. And so one of them is she says, it's just a piece of paper. You can throw it
Ooh.
away. And that idea of like, you're taking time for yourself, you're doing something joyful and beautiful that's bringing you peace. And at the end of it, if you throw it away, it's just a piece of paper.
Just a piece
Don't
of
worry about
paper.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
truly. I think that in like that sort of globally is the definition of presence, right? Like, and I do feel like the quickest way to peace is to really get very present and then like
Mm-hmm.
decide how you want to feel in that present moment and commit to that. And I think just with the like to be like, It is just the piece of paper in front of you at your desk. It can either stay with you in the future or it can be thrown in the garbage, and it is totally your choice. But right now, your whole job is to just enjoy the piece of paper.
Exactly. Just give
Oh,
yourself that 10 minutes, that 15 minutes. Use whatever tools you have. It might
yeah.
be a coloring book that you
Hmm.
find the time. I'm not saying that watercolor is for everyone. It happens
Yeah.
to have really resonated with me, but I've
Mm.
also practiced other things like flower pressing is a really
Oh, cool.
beautiful thing that when I walk the dogs, I might pick a few flowers from my yard or whatever and then come home and press them and just enjoy looking at that and learning from that. There's so many ways that we as individuals can find creative outlets. My oldest daughter is really into film and television and editing things. She can spend hours editing 30 hours worth of film down to a 10 minute scene, and it's just incredible to me, and that is creative.
Wow.
But she also loves to bake. That's a
Yeah.
very creative outlet. And my husband is in finance. He makes the most creative spreadsheets I have ever known. One time, just to prove that he could do a Sudoku faster than me, he made a spreadsheet that could solve any expert level Sudoku to prove that he could do it faster than me.
Oh my
So
God.
that is creative, right? Like, and
Right.
that is an outlet for him. So I just encourage people to find whatever it is that resonates with you and make time for it. And rather than seek perfection, definitely see that the process, the practice is the gift. That's where the
Mm.
peace comes from.
Oh, that is literally the quote of the episode. That is so like that might just be my next tattoo. I say that a lot on this show, but I'm going to have a full sleeve of amazing things that incredible women that I've gotten the chance to meet have said. But I just feel so fortunate to have this opportunity to talk to so many amazing women like yourself who have had these perspectives. My best friend is a widow. She became a widow at 39 with 4 kiddos, and
Oh,
it she's amazing, and she certainly has plenty of grief, but she too has such a similar perspective. All sorts of pivots in life give you perspective that you never wanted, and it is an opportunity to do something with it. So I think, despite the immense hardship that you and the incredible amount of loss that you went through, you see it as like the way you describe the sunset. You're like, not only am I going to see it, I'm going to capture it and I'm going to paint it, because this could be a short ride and I want to
mm-hmm.
enjoy it. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's so, so, so beautiful and so important. Um, so okay, I know that you really reconnected with creativity, fell back in love with the process of writing. What was it that made you wanted to write Absorbed?
So I always had wanted to write a novel. That was a big goal of mine. When I graduated with my bachelor's degree at 21, I knew I needed to live a little bit of life and I needed to earn a living. That
Details.
unfortunately, it's hard for 21-year-olds to have just the unlimited funds to pay rent and buy food. And so I went into marketing and advertising, and
Cool.
I loved my career. I worked exclusively with nonprofits, and I was sharing the
Oh,
stories of children around the world who needed vaccinations and food and education. And it was a wonderful career for me to really experience storytelling in a different way. And I knew that someday I would come back to this dream and this goal. But when I was in that hard place, it didn't seem like I could ever find my way back to that. And then when I started being creative again,
yeah.
painting, and went back to school, I found that I was energized in a whole new way. I found that
Oh, that
my husband's alarm goes off because he works in finance, but we're on the West Coast, so his alarm goes off at
so
four
early.
fifteen in the morning,
Oh
so
my
that he
God.
can leave by 5:30 in the morning for work. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
it used to be that, I would like put a pillow over my head and then
Totally.
like stay in bed as long as I could and wake up and doom scroll. But when I was in this, and still to this day, in this creative space, I found at 4:15, I was like, I want to get up. I want to write my journal. I want to do my sketching. And then I want to get into that scene that I was writing. It
Oh,
just started to come out of me. And part of that also began because even when I started the novel in 2022, life doesn't stop being hard, especially with two teenage daughters and elderly parents. We were still going through struggles. We still are today,
yeah.
even. And I had chosen to focus my novel on the 1990s. And my husband and I fell in love going to like punk rock shows. And I was
Totally.
like, I can live in this space of a teenage girl, because I have two teenage girls. Like, I can really resonate with what it was like to be a teenage girl, but like the fun of going to a movie premiere and waiting for hours on the sidewalk to get a seat in the theater, because back then you couldn't
Yep.
reserve a seat.
Yep.
Not having a cell phone, but driving your car with the windows down and the CD player going, and the screaming in anger or laughing in joy. Like, I
Yes.
could be back in that zone while I was writing, and it was like time travel for me.
Ugh.
So I would just get so excited. I would be on the treadmill for 2 hours just typing away a scene from, like, that had come to me, you know.
I love
So
this.
I loved the idea of focusing a story on a girl at 17 when the whole world is in front of her, but she feels trapped by the responsibilities that are ahead of her. Because as a mom, we have those feelings of like responsibility and things we need to, you know, live up to everybody else's expectations. But as a mom of two teenage girls, I saw my girls feel that same way about where they'll go to college, who they'll be as adults, and that pressure to be what everybody else in the world wants you to be instead of what you want to be. And I wanted to write a novel where I got to go back in time and have fun, but also to show all these young people now, don't live your life for other people.
Ugh.
Be the person you want to be. Follow your dreams and your passions, and that will set you free from all of those other expectations.
If you're building your dream business and you know you need to build an email list, but the idea of picking and using an email platform totally overwhelms you, trust me, I get it. But I've got you, girl. Flowdesk is where it's at. Flowdesk is the email marketing platform designed with female entrepreneurs in mind. Think gorgeous, on-brand templates plus powerful workflows that save you hours. I promise you, I've never used an easier email platform with such stunning results. Whether you're sending an email launching a new offer or podcast episode, sharing new news, or trying out a fancy workflow to convert a new email subscriber into a paying customer, Flowdesk helps you show up professionally with ease without spending a ton of time or money. And not to mention, these emails are gorgeous. And because you're a Write Your Own Story podcast listener, you get an exclusive 50% off your first year of Flowdesk. Plus, they'll send you $19 cash back when you join using the link in the show notes. So if you're ready to send stunning emails that convert and actually enjoy the process, click the link in the show notes and give Flowdesk a try. That's 50% off your first year plus $19 back in your pocket. Check out Flowdesk today. It's like your super talented email writing best friend. I promise you won't regret it. Now, back to the episode. Do you feel like, okay, so then kind of toggling back and forth, but in your season of life, coming out of the season of life where you've experienced so much grief, the world is locked down, you've moved, like you said you tried to go back to work and then life happened. And it's just like, I can feel sort of your identity pieces getting put further and further in the back of the pantry, which I think all of us can relate to in some way, shape, or form. And I love how like open and honest and in the forefront you are about this, because every woman is like, like nodding along. But then, it's almost like the book feels so cathartic as you write it. It's like you're writing to your daughters, you're writing to all the future generations, you're writing to your present self, you're writing to your past self. It's really, I do feel like our generation, I assume everyone is my age, so I'm just like, but I also grew up in the 90s. As my kids would say, the last century. I'm like, thank you for that.
Yeah.
They're so gentle, these children. Although they're telling the truth.
I love the snark.
right. Love a good snark. But I feel like our generation might be one of the first ones where we are like, wait a minute, I actually don't want to live by someone else's expectation. Sometimes I feel like our parents' generation and those before didn't really have that luxury. And I'm not really sure how we got here. And I think we still feel the hangover effects from it in our generation. And I think that's why so many of us are coming up for air in our 40s and being like, that's why literally the show is called Write Your Own Story. Because I was like, I lived my life by what the rules were to a T. At least I thought I did. I sure tried. And life still kind of, twisted, turned, imploded, and pivoted just like everybody else's life does. And I was just kind of like, I say this all the time, so excuse my language, but I'm like, fuck it. I'm writing my own rules. And like,
exactly. Yeah. Because life will blindside us no matter what. And a lot of girls, women in particular, are trained to be the good girl who doesn't make waves, but just goes with the flow and follows the rules and does everything right. And I was lucky enough to be a pretty good student in school. I was the kid that, most, if I knew myself, then, I probably wouldn't have liked myself very much because I was kind of a
Oh,
brown noser, front in the class, like raising my hand all the time. And so I was doing everything right. And I got to UCLA pre-med because I was told, like, you need to use these smarts and you're capable. So if you can do it, you should do it. And I
yes.
was a freshman at UCLA and I was miserable.
Hmm.
And I had a upper division lit teacher because I actually had earned my way into upper division literature classes. So as a freshman, I'm sitting there with juniors and seniors and I'm having dialogues with them. And this teacher pulled me aside after class. At first, I thought I was in trouble. I was like, no, what did
Totally.
I do?
Yeah. You're like,
And
ah.
she's like, why does my roll sheet say that you're a bio major? And I
Hmm.
was like, because I'm supposed to be. And she's like, you're not a bio major. You
Hmm.
love this. Like, you are passionate about this. You understand these stories. You can pull them apart and dialogue about them. This is something you're passionate about. And it was like, for the first time in my life, somebody gave me permission to do something just because I wanted to, not because I should. But I then, from that movement forward in my life, I transferred schools. I studied abroad. I became a creative writing major. I met my husband at my new school, and like I said, I went to punk rock shows all the time, and
Yes.
I started living for me, and life became so much more full. And I
Right.
started that theory of just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yes.
And I am so grateful for that lesson and for that teacher that actually I'm in a really lucky situation, or lucky or not. I'm sadly clearing my mom's house out right now because she's downsizing. And I came across a box of my old college papers the other day, and I found where I wrote about this teacher and how she changed my life. And I am totally sending her an email. She's still a teacher at UCLA, and
Oh
I
my God, I
am
have
going to
goosebumps.
thank her personally because it really was transformative to have a
Yes.
brilliant woman tell me it's okay to just do something because you want to.
God, I mean, I have full body goosebumps. Those are like those amazing pivots in life. Not all pivots have to come from tragedy. Some pivots can
Mm-hmm.
come from just those conversations. And that's another hope of this show, that it unlocks whatever permission a woman needs to do her thing in her own way. And
Yes.
I love that story. And if there are teachers out there listening, what a gift to be in a position where you can have that massive amount of impact, because you get these kids with these like open hearts and minds that are just trying to do their best. I think, one of the greatest gifts of hosting this show is that, like, I feel like the very like JV team of Brene Brown, where like I just collect all of these nuggets and I keep getting these reoccurring themes. Like I'm like a strategist by trade in advertising, actually. So
Uh-huh.
totally get it. But like, so marketing, advertising, understanding people and research, really, it just like makes my heart pitter patter. I'm not so much a spreadsheet girly, but I will send my findings to your husband if he could make them into PPT. That would be amazing. Uh, but one of the common themes that I have found on this show is that the women that are living life in the fullest color and brightness and genuinely are the most successful at what they do, success being a broad term, right? Are doing something that is a natural extension of their gifts.
Yeah.
So you are like, you are so deeply gifted in the literary space, and your professor saw that and was like, this is your bright shiny spot, go live there.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I have learned in my life, that my biggest red flag in life is in my own dialogue, is when I hear the word should. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, up, I need to hold up right here and now. Whatever you're thinking, if the word should is in the sentence, something is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it has
Yeah.
been I don't know. And it's like, it took me 43 years. Well, I probably started thinking that at like 42.
Yeah.
But I was just like, okay, that's my biggest personal red flag. Like, we all, like, like, I'm single. So like and like, you get all the reels about dating or whatever, and like red flags, and they're so funny. And I send them to all my friends or
Yes.
whatever. But
Yes.
I think you also have to know yourself, married or not married, and your own red flags. And that's one
Yeah.
of my red flags for me. If I start getting into the should space, I'm like, slow up, something is wrong. You're taking a wrong turn because you're going down the should path again, and that serves no one.
That is so great. That is a great way to like look at anything. There are paths that we choose to follow for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's not something we want to do, but we figure, with all choices, it is the best choice for us at that moment. But if we're only doing it because there's an expectation of everybody else that we should do it, there probably is somebody better for the job, that
Yeah.
our energy can be used elsewhere in a more positive way for us and for the productivity of the situation, because
Yes.
nobody wants to do anything with resentment. Nobody wants to do anything where they're only doing it because they feel like they have to. That's
Mm-hmm.
not a good place to start from any project.
No, and I've never thought about it overtly in a connection to energy, but oh my God, you're so right. It is the biggest energy squasher to be
Mm-hmm.
like, I should be doing this. It absolutely then starts from a place of resentment or lack of connection. And you're just like, well, the whole thing is flat.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
for
trending
sure.
down, trending down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh my God.
Which
I
is
don't know
not,
how
we
I
need to turn that around every time. Yep, we got
every
to trend
time.
upwards.
I'm sorry. I feel like I took us on the biggest should tangent, but like I was just so moved by that story and that you're like, no, and you are like, you're so naturally smart and can you imagine if you were a doctor right now?
I have this conversation with my daughters all the time, because one is 16, the other's 18, and she's going to be leaving for college in the fall. She's graduating in less than a month.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we have these conversations all the time. It's such a gift to be blessed with intelligence and
Yes.
to be raised in a household where you're supported and encouraged to follow your abilities. But it's also a little bit harder on, not that it's like a woe is me, but like somebody who is capable of following lots of different paths has a harder time knowing which path is the right one for them, maybe because
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I had, my math teachers, my physics teachers were like, "Wow, you're really, smart at this," but it took somebody pointing out the passion that I was coming at literature with, and I just couldn't see it at that age. And that's part of why my book is focused on a 17-year-old girls, because at that age you're so insecure, you're constantly looking outward for how the rest of the world perceives you, and those
Yes.
insecurities are blinding you to what you
Mm.
really are and who you really will, be happiest as someday. And I wanted to show girls, like, that's the title absorbed is, when we're so self-absorbed with our insecurities, actually
Yeah.
we are blind to what the actual perceptions of other people are. Their perceptions are of themselves, just like yours are of yourself, and they are not judging you as harshly as you think they are.
Yeah.
um, and so, like, you got to kind of get out of your head, and you got to
Uh-huh.
really just live your life and follow those things, like the punk rock music, like the books that are really, pulling you in and you don't want to put them down, like
Uh-huh.
the artwork or the spreadsheets, whatever it is.
Right.
You got
Whatever
to
it
just follow
is.
it. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. It is so true. I've just never thought about it that way, but I really love that perspective that if you do have so many doors sort of open to you, it probably is incredibly overwhelming. Like, honestly, I've learned in life also that some of my favorite moments are when a door closes. Of course, it's painful and there's, but you're like, that wasn't my path. And so then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, at least I have a few less doors now. like
Yeah.
you've learned something, et cetera, et cetera. But I hold definite space for and I think there are a lot of moms out there listening with kids that are thinking about going to college and, they have worked hard and they have all these possibilities, and give them some empathy to be like, you know what, if your kid doesn't exactly know which one to do yet, it's because the options feel kind of limitless, and that has to be really overwhelming. I think that's a great nugget for moms to put in their pocket.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love,
I'm
I
really
love
proud of my daughter that she's chosen a university in Manhattan all the way across the country, and
oh,
that she's following things that she's passionate about. But I also just keep reminding her, whatever happens, you're going to be okay. We're
yeah,
going to support you. You're going to, like, if you hate Manhattan, we'll find
right.
another place for you. If you love it and you never want to come back, we'll be spending a lot of time with you in Manhattan. Like, however this works out, you're going to be okay.
Mm.
And I think that has really given her permission to try it. Just try it. follow this dream as far as it'll take you. And then, yeah, if that door closes, the next one might be exactly where you were supposed to be. My
Yeah.
road that I followed to get here was a windy, weird,
Yep.
chaotic one. And I wouldn't change it at all, because what I learned and how I grew were just really such
Yeah.
gifts to me.
I totally get that. And I love that you've set your daughter up for this notion of like, no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. And that implies that, like, I'm air quoting for those who are just listening, like failure. So, like, if she goes there and she hates it, some might perceive that as to be like, oh, I picked the wrong school. Those of us who are recovering perfectionists and people pleasers be like, oh, I picked the wrong school. I failed, or whatever it may be. You're like, no, no, this is just the windy part of life. And I love
Yeah.
that you want to give her the space and the support to just wiggle and wind. Because when I think about the version of you in COVID that was like, I need a hard reboot, like,
Mm-hmm.
you had to get to that point where you were just following a path head down, right? Just trying to
Yeah.
survive all the
Yeah.
circumstances that were happening to you. And that, that happens in a season of life for, in some way, shape, or form. I think everyone can sort of relate to that. Yours was obviously like very extreme with all this grief and the moving and then the COVID. I mean, really, truly, it was just like, okay, sure, universe, what else? But I love that you're trying to give your daughter the permission to just like bob and weave before you get to that hard reboot place. So, kind of like for those of us who grew up in the 90s and are feeling like we have unplugged from ourselves and have just been doing the doings and the things, and we're like, I don't want to get to the place where I hard reboot. Like, can you remember or describe sort of what the ascend felt like daily with that anxiety and the sadness
Yeah.
to get you to that hard reboot place?
For
So that people
sure.
can kind of watch for that and only fall
Yeah.
maybe halfway.
Yeah, I think most of us know what it feels like to be in a moment, maybe a brief moment, where our hands are shaky and it's hard to take that full breath. Our breath is a little ragged. There's a tightness in our chest. Maybe our stomach is even not doing real well in multiple
Totally.
ways.
Yes.
And yet we have to get the kids to school on time, and we have to go to that PTA meeting, and we have to get groceries before we go to swim practice and have the food in the crock pot so that as soon as we get home we can eat and do homework. Like, sometimes
Mhm.
you feel that way, and you don't get to stop and deal with it because life is too much. Well, I felt that way, not only day after day, not only week after week, but it was year after year. And I would get little moments of release, but
Mhm.
most of the time I was in that shaky, hard to take a real deep breath like space. And to sit down and paint and focus on, for example, a flower like the one you see behind. So
Yeah.
I walked the dogs one day in April or May of 2021, and took this picture of this rose covered in a thousand raindrops.
Oh.
And I chose that year for my Mother's Day to spend 9 hours learning how to paint raindrops by sitting down and painting that rose. And just to focus on it, and the joy and the peace that would wash over me. And then when I got up from that painting, I was proud of it, but I also took that joy and peace with me into the rest of my life. And I was energized for that Monday morning to, like, let's do this. Like, let's rock and roll this week. And I can't wait until I find the next chance to sit down and paint again, because I feel so
Totally.
good.
God, I
So
love that.
that, yeah, if there are women out there that right now are in that shaky space where, they've got their coffee in hand in carpool line, and they have a list of a million to-dos, and they feel like they can't make time for this, I encourage you. One of the things that I do is just like a 10-minute exercise, like, of drawing and painting. Like, I can't find an hour to paint every day. I certainly can't find 9 hours to paint every day.
Totally.
And same with writing. Writing takes a lot of time. Revision takes a lot of time. I have to carve out space for that. But every day I can write in my journal, and every day I can do my little drawing exercises and get that piece that starts me off for a successful rest of my day. So I don't doom scroll in the morning. That is how I start my day. I journal 3 pages, and then I do my drawing exercise. And it is the only thing I found that is sustainable for me to find that peace throughout the day.
Oh, I have a couple of questions for those who are like, okay, well, what is my thing? Maybe I don't want to be a watercolor painter for 10 minutes.
Mhm.
Maybe I don't want to journal. Like, how do you encourage women to discover what their creative thing is or their little 10-minute releases?
Try different things. I have friends that
Yeah.
crochet. I have friends
Yeah.
that needlepoint. I have
Same.
friends that make, yeah, those little like those little creatures that are crocheted creatures or whatever
Oh
they're called.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think I got those for the kids. We
woobles or
tried.
something like that.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was horrible at it, but it was
yeah.
sure fun to try.
But some people love it.
Absolutely.
As I mentioned earlier, a coloring book maybe.
Hmm.
I do yoga. I love yoga, and for
Hmm.
some people, meditation and yoga are the key to that for them. It was never quite enough for me
Hmm.
because my head was always still spinning, and
Hmm.
the journaling, that is something I learned from Julia Cameron, and her book The Artist Way was written decades ago and is one of the best-selling books ever of all time. And that is her number one like rule of how to be a successful creative person, is to start your day with 3 pages of journal writing. And what I find that by doing that journal writing is that it really is like the the clearing of all the cobwebs and mess
Hmm.
in my head. I have all sorts of appointments and things that I'm stressed about, and things I need to, order for the grad party, or talk to the realtor about my mom's escrow about, or whatever it is. I have all of this up in my head, and if I spend 15 minutes in the morning writing 3 pages of all that nonsense that will never be published, and I hope it's never sees the light of day, because
Right?
there's a lot of cuss
Strict
words in there.
instruction.
There's a lot of frustration. There's
Uh-huh.
a lot of
Absolutely.
begging the universe and God and whatever powers are out there to help make these things come true. Um, but but it
Yes.
clears it all out, and that space and that lightness I get from just that exercise is so valuable. So that doesn't require skill, and you don't have to do 3 pages. You could start with 1 page. You could
Mhm.
start with a timer for 5 minutes. But if you allow yourself time where you deserve the chance to just unload your thoughts in the moment, and put them
Mhm.
somewhere else that you can set it down and leave it there, it
Yes.
is so helpful.
Hey, fellow boss babe, if you're craving less time on social because it feels like you're constantly in your comments and DMs trying to respond back to your potential customers, I totally get it. When I had my e-commerce business, I felt like I checked Instagram every 5 minutes. But what if there was a smarter, easier way to connect with your audience? Good news, there is. Let me introduce you to ManyChat, my go-to tool for automating messages on Instagram, Facebook, and even text. With ManyChat, you can set up automated conversations in minutes. No tech headaches, no coding required. Trust me, if I can figure it out, so can you. It's perfect for handling links to your offers, growing your list with DM keywords, and even booking clients literally while you sleep. It's efficient, super user friendly, and honestly, it's like having a virtual assistant built right into your DMs. And the best part? Because you're a friend of the Write Your Own Story podcast, you can try it totally free for your first month. Just use the link in the show notes. Is there anything better than to test something for your business for an entire month with no cost attached? It's my favorite. So if you're ready to save time, respond faster, and turn followers into clients, tap the link in the show notes and give ManyChat a try for free. First month's on me. Grab the offer today and go enjoy a much needed break from your phone. You deserve it. I believe Gabby Bernstein calls it rage on a page, which I love. When
Yes.
we think about the cobwebs, they're like so spinny, right? And they're like,
Yes.
there's so much anxiety pulsing through them. And you're like, oh, I'm going to rage on a page here for a minute and just to like
Yes.
zoop it out. And then I love that. I also am a big journaler. And I wonder if you and I have this in common where I do meditate. But
Mhm.
of course my thoughts are like do 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 like all over the place. But I still do it, and I find it very effective, and I find it very helpful, especially if it's like on a specific topic or prompt or whatever it may be. But for me, the mind hand connection is super important for my focus. So like when I think about like you get your cobwebs cleared out and then you pick up your paintbrush, that's really where you can like connect the two. And that's where like true peace and simple focus comes from.
Yeah.
but that also is like part of journaling for me. Like before I go to bed, I'm like, okay, I can think of three great things from the day, but then I'm like, then my thoughts start to go this way and that way. And I'm like, if I get my notebook out and I write it that way, when I wake up in the morning with the anxiety from the cobwebs, I can read those three things and be like,
Yes.
remember, girl, life is good. Life is so good. It will all get done eventually. It's all going to work out. But I love that. But I love like when in my corporate days, I used to have to doodle in meetings for me to be able to pay attention because I just need
Same.
to
Mm-hmm.
occupy more senses. So I think there is something really to that. But I love the idea too of like, you're obviously an incredibly talented paper painter, but like no matter what you start at, who cares if you suck at it? This is for you. And that is like the greatest
Exactly.
gift. Yeah.
It turned out that like I've actually gotten pretty good at it, and I sell
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
art. I have commissioned art, and I actually even designed the cover of my book. And
Cool.
I've been able to take it pretty far, but the goal was never that
Right.
was never the goal, and that the peace and the joy. So like when we were on spring break, I every single day painted, and like just to like look at what I was looking at and to paint it on the page was such a gift to me that all I wanted to do all day was, sit there by the pool or sit there at the beach and just paint and paint and paint, because of that gift. And who knows if I'll ever do anything with these paintings. I'm proud of how they turned out, but
Yeah.
the experience was what made it so valuable to me.
And I love that it can like pull you out of your external world. And if I think about you during COVID and all that is happening around you or has happened to you, and really bring it back into your internal world, which I think is so important. And you had mentioned that like that peace that you get in the morning from that exercise carries with you throughout the day.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like I was actually feeling, I woke up in a mood this morning, and my oldest son, I had asked him to take his plate of food from his room. Yes, I let him do that down to the kitchen. And he was on the phone with his friends. And he kind of like my oldest son is one of the kindest kids you'll ever meet. He came this
Yeah.
way right from the universe. Like I can only take so much credit. He is a wonderful kid, but he's also almost
Oh,
14. So when I was like, he's on the phone with his friends and I'm like, take your plate down. And he's like, gave me Hayden's version of attitude, which is attitude light. But still, I was like, and so then when I went up this morning to be like, hey, it's almost time to go to school, his plate was still there. I was like,
yep. Yep.
yeah,
We've all been there. Yep.
totally. We've all been there. I was like, rawr. And then by the time, so I got my older two to middle school. And by the time I was ready to get my twins ready for elementary school, I was like, I could feel my energy vibration, like absolutely affecting everybody. And it's a lot of pressure sometimes to be
Yeah.
in that peaceful, joyful place because, it's a tough gig sometimes around here.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and you're a single mom. I mean,
mhm.
it's a
And there's,
hard, every
yeah,
morning is hard, I'm sure. And
totally. It really is. It's like broken into shifts and all the things, but it is like, it's nice to know. I hope that moms listening out there can see that even in like the most overwhelming feelings and that anxiety, and like you were saying, that like it's hard to catch my breath and it's hard to make the thought stop. You can in just 10 or 20 minutes if you take the time wherever you can fit it in. But if you make that promise to yourself, you really can feel better. You really, really, really can feel better. And that will translate all day. It's not just those 20 minutes.
absolutely. So, for example, yesterday, and for the last 4 days, I'm fielding text messages all day trying to clear things out of my mom's house, and
Mm,
it is a full time job doing this, and that is
totally.
stressful. And she's by herself at her house, 75 miles away from me, and I
Mhm.
can't be there all the time. And yet I start with that journal writing exercise, and as I set my phone down from the next text message, I check in with myself. I'm like, yeah, I'm still doing okay. But if I'm not, if
Mhm.
something happens that I'm not, I can always pick up that journal in the middle of the day and, as you say, like rage write for a little
Mhm.
while. Oh, I've rage written letters to people and then
Oh
burned
yeah.
them because it just felt good. And not every conversation is appropriate to actually have, but my
Yeah.
feelings get a little bit of space to just be released through
Yes.
that activity, and then I can move on and not carry that with me where I go.
It is truly such great advice. What would you say to moms? So your girls were pretty much teenagers, right? By the time that you started exploring, getting back and tapped into your creativity. What do you think about the moms who have chosen to stay home, which by the way, I find to be the hardest job in the world. I was like, I need help. I'm going back to work. And so like, I hold so much admiration for the mothers who are strong enough to stay home because I thought it was
Yeah.
really hard. Um, to the moms who are staying home and who are in the season of like diapers and naps, and I am currently, my kids are all playing sports like they're professional athletes, even though none of them would ever claim to be. But the sports world is so wild, but they love it, and et cetera, et cetera. And like, do you wish that you had started the creative process sooner? What would you say to the moms who are in sort of like not in the teen zone yet, but are very much so in the like very hands-on space?
I can be right back there with you ladies. I know what that was like.
Mhm.
I have memories of when I was potty training my oldest, and my newborn was nursing, and my husband came home, and the oldest was just in her underpants,
Sure.
dancing around the room with like a popsicle in her hand, and dinner was not made, and I was as stressed could be.
Mhm.
I get it. I see you. I feel it.
Mhm.
I did at that time do a little bit of mommy blogging, and that was a good outlet for me. It was a fun way to express what I was going through. I also I really just like making space and time for the creative activities I'm doing now. I really prioritized what I needed to be energized at that stage of life. And for me, it was these little adventures that my girls and I would go on. So
Yeah.
I had to plan a day to the zoo so that my oldest could like get her energy running around while the younger one napped in the stroller. We lived in Pasadena at the time, and so the Huntington Gardens and the Descanso Gardens, and
Mhm.
we would take the train down to visit my husband at work in downtown LA, and like, go around Chinatown. Like, we would
Yeah.
take these little adventures that got me out of the house and
Mhm.
out of this feeling that I was trapped in this stage of life. And
Yes.
I really encourage whatever it is that does that. Yeah, we were in like mommy groups at the time. I was actually the head of a MOPS for several years, and those things were fun. But I think as a creative person, I've always been a little more introverted, even though I can be very extroverted and have, great dialogues with people and be out and about. But I always liked to just do my own thing, come up with
Mm.
my own plan, and then execute on it. And so I did that with them. And it was actually sad when, they were both in school full time, because that meant that was sort of an end to that day
Yeah.
to day freedom to spend time with them. So I encourage, it doesn't have to be big or expensive. It can be a walk in the park where
Yep.
you find five brown things or you find five red things, and but just get out and really find ways to stimulate your own just energy and creativity that will help you find that peace and not feel so trapped in this stage.
Absolutely. And like you're saying, that will continue throughout the rest of the day. Oh, it just makes me think of all the little adventures we used to go on to. That really was such a special stage. I mean, don't get me wrong, like also a very sweaty stage as you're like trying to feed one kid a bottle and the other one is like, I'm going to run in the shark zone. And you're just like, oh my God. But it really was magical.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely magical.
Yeah.
Um,
And now, when they're teenagers, you go on new adventures.
yeah.
2 years ago, I took my girls to Paris, and we had an incredible
Oh,
5.5 days. I mean, it was not a long trip. We didn't have a lot of money. We stayed in an Airbnb, but like, they're old enough, and like, this has been our life together, is having adventures together. So it's just, I encourage you to, as they grow, let the adventures grow too.
absolutely. I love that and you've instilled the sense of adventure and wonder and by sort of these examples of being like I do take time for myself and I'm sure your children we know our children are energetic beings. and they see mom's energy shift just as they see it shift the other way with me this morning. I was like, I've got to do something about this attitude. That I did. I took care of it. I went for a walk. I snap videoed my best friend and was like, bleh. And I was like,
Yeah,
I'm
good.
gonna snap out of this. This just needs a place to land. And she said the most beautiful things back to me. And like, you can change your energy. And once
Yeah.
you realize you can, that is your superpower.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in dark places where I do choose joy, and I choose finding that energy and finding a positive approach to things as much as possible. I have full empathy for people who maybe right now don't feel like joy is a choice they can make. Um,
Yeah.
but you can, for a few minutes, find space to give your feelings a place to exist somewhere outside of your body. Write them down, rip them up, throw them away, or if you want to have them in a journal, have them in a journal. But
Mhm.
try to give yourself freedom from those negative thoughts. Try to give yourself freedom from whatever's dragging you down right now for at least a short amount of time. Really try to take those baby steps. Take that walk. And while you're
Mhm.
on that walk, look for that beautiful rose that you can snap a picture of and just go, wow, this is a moment of beauty in my day that like
Mhm.
I took the time to appreciate. And I promise it will build on itself.
It really does. And it builds way faster than you think it will.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll even take that picture of the rose and make it my background on my phone to
Yeah.
remember that, like, and I'll actually, like, I do the ones that like rotate through and I'm like, remember you have these amazing moments.
Yeah. For
Um,
sure.
it really, like, your brain is a muscle and it gets stronger and you can retrain it. What would you say?
Yes.
So, we've talked about the moms who are in an early phase who, like, to really tap into what brings them peace and joy. But what would you say to moms who maybe are feeling like, or just women in general, like, oh, I think it's too late for me to, like, this could be any woman in the corporate world who's like, I'm 20 years in, it's too late for me to tap into something creative and find, my creative passion from that. Or for someone who is like, I'm just sending my kids off to college and it's feeling like, I think I missed my window. What would you say to a woman who's feeling that way?
I would say it's never too late to find
Mhm.
a new path that brings you joy. For example, my mom had a wonderful career, and she and my stepdad were married for, I think, 35 years when he passed away. And she
Mm.
went through a really hard time after he passed away in 2020. And even at 75 years old, she is starting that next chapter, and she is finding new joy, and she wants to try pickleball. She,
That a girl.
might join this crafting club at her new retirement community. It doesn't matter what age you are. There
Yeah.
are ways that you can find space and joy and peace, really, and a new trajectory and a new direction. Don't let anything that makes you feel trapped or set back be the reason you don't pursue the next adventure for yourself. It really is available to you, and you're the only one setting yourself back from being able to do it.
Right. The trap is very self-inflicted.
It
I mean, don't get me
is.
wrong. It's not that life doesn't give you challenging circumstances.
Of
We all,
course.
yeah. But it, like, when you put the cage around yourself like that, as easy as it was for you to put the cage on, you can also take the cage off.
Absolutely. And like I said, life hasn't gotten easier. We
Right.
just had to plan a funeral for my mother-in-law, and we just had to sell her house, and we're selling my mom's house, and
Mm.
other people are struggling in our lives in multiple ways, and we are there for them. We are loving
Yep.
them, we are supporting them, and we are going through it with them, but we are not stopping on pursuing our dreams at the same time. We are
Right.
finding a way to make all things work because it matters. It matters to me to share my book with people. And so I'm going to make that happen. It matters to me that my daughter has a great college experience. So we're going to make that happen. It matters to me that my youngest plays basketball and is taking an AP test tomorrow. And so we are going to keep supporting her in those things too. And each one of these dreams deserves space. And any woman who puts herself on a shelf and thinks that she doesn't deserve the space to follow something she's passionate about, really, she is the one holding the key to that cage she's built, and she can absolutely unlock it and escape from it at any moment if she gives herself permission to.
And I love how you described everything is sort of like, I'm keep getting this like adventure theme coming through. Like it really takes the perfectionist lens off of it. Like think about your mom. She's like, I'm going to try pickleball. She could hate it. No big deal.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
could try craft club and be like, these ladies aren't my people. Like, or men, there could be men in craft club.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, or she could love it. But I maybe I'm just projecting. I truly am over perfect. It doesn't exist. I'm over people pleasing.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
exhausting, but that doesn't mean that those tendencies and those old files are still not coded in here somewhere. So it's
Yeah.
always a great check in for me to be like, if you're going to do something, I'm so used to like, you're like, I'm all in. I'm like, well, I'm just going to actually dip a toe and be like, do I like it?
Right. Right.
And it takes the edge off of trying something new.
For
It's just like,
sure. There's no harm in trying and seeing if it's for you. And if it's not for you, guess what? There's a whole wide world of things out there that might be for you. Some
mm-hmm.
people start running at this age and become marathon runners.
Yeah,
I'm baffled by it.
same.
I'm excited for them.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried running. It is not going to be me out on that marathon course. It's not on my bucket list. But
Yep.
man, that doesn't mean I don't want to go cheer them on the sidelines. I will be there for them. So yeah, keep looking for that thing, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. I love this. So, and what I also love is I really want to talk more about the book specifically. And I love that you were able, it's really cool. I've never heard about it from the writing process that it is, as a reader, I'm like, I love the escapism of just like wanting to like rip through the pages. I'm like, nobody talk to me. I'm on vacation. Like, like I'm in the book. I've dived into the pages. Like, but it sounds like for you, for writing was the same experience. You were like, I
Yes.
have time warped into somewhere else. I literally do not exist as it is today. Like, what a cool experience.
Oh, it was
Okay.
so fun. Yes,
Yeah.
I built a Spotify playlist with the music that I was referring to in all the scenes, so I would have that
Oh my
playing in
God.
the background
Awesome.
to inspire me.
Yeah.
I'm a very visual person, obviously, as an artist. So like I made like a scrapbook of like each character and what they like, who they admired, what they wanted to wear, like what their catchphrase would be. So I could visualize them. I could see them talking to each other in my head. And it was like totally going into this parallel universe while I was writing. And it was so fun to be there. And one of the biggest compliments to me was I had a writing coach for a while. And when we got to the end of the complete revision and it was fully finished, she's like, I walk into the mall and I feel like I'm going to run into Stacy and her friends in the mall because they are so real to me. And that's a huge compliment because I really did know each one of them inside out and what their dreams were and who they were going to be and what they were struggling with as I wrote the book. And so I could just live in this place with them while I wrote it. It was so much fun.
Oh my God. I hope that both the playlist and the scrapbook are part of the marketing materials because I want to see and hear everything. Okay. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about Stacy for those who are like, ooh, this book sounds amazing. Let's hook people in.
So Stacy's 17. It's the end of her junior year, going into her senior year, and she has gotten her first job as a lifeguard at a community pool out in the boonies of Southern California. Yes, for those who are curious, I did grow up in the boonies of Southern California, and I was a lifeguard. So they say write what you know,
Right.
and
Oh,
this was my first novel, so I
Yep.
wrote what I know.
There you
But I was
go.
also I'm a Gen X, like right on the cusp of millennial age. So if you're like me around that age group, you
Yes, I am.
probably grew
Yeah.
up watching Caddyshack too, also.
Mhm.
And Caddyshack had these teenagers that were running the show, and they were up to no good. And I was like, I can totally write from the guard shack perspective of like teenagers who are running the show and up to no good. And so Stacy's entering this world for the very first time, and she's not your picture perfect model body. She hasn't had a lot of experience with boys. As the short line says at the top of the back of the book, she is dreaming of love and drowning in bad decisions. So
No.
you meet her in those first couple chapters, and she is not a very likable person. As a mom of two teenagers and somebody who was a teenage girl, I was not a very likable person a lot of the times, especially when my insecurities were like angry voices in my own head.
Yep. Same
And
girl, same.
yeah. she gets the opportunity to work at this pool with her crush, and what that looks like, as he is a bit of a playboy and dates somebody else at the pool, and all of that experience, along with her pushing her mom and her best friend away, who are trying to give her great advice, and she's not taking it. All of that comes together in this big pivotal moment in the book, where there's a tragic accident at the pool, and Stacy has to be, she has to, in the moment, do everything she can to save this person, but she's also having her own internal crisis, and she's really faced with, like, how do I want my life to go moving forward from here? And
Wow.
I think that as you so aptly put it before, that's where I was before I took up watercolor. That's where I felt as an adult. So I was talking to myself through this book. I am talking to teenage girls. I am talking to Gen X and millennial moms who have teenagers of their own. Please know that, like, this story, she makes a lot of mistakes, and teenagers do make a lot of mistakes. And I hope, as moms who read it, you choose to give your kids a lot of grace, that they can come through it, that they will be okay. And the teenagers who read it can see that their parents, who were teenagers in the 90s, went through the same nonsense that they're going through right now. They understand how it feels to be that insecure. They understand how it feels to be slighted by your crush. And then that they all can come together and have better dialogue after having read this book. I really, that is my biggest goal, is that it brings the two generations together, the parents and the teenagers, and so they can talk about these situations that come up for everyone.
What an absolute delight. Like, I'm like, oh, I wanted everyone to bring their copy with their daughter on their next vacation and have like a mini book club and be like, oh my God, did you read that part? Are you there yet? Like, and to be like, and then to open up that dialogue. Oh, that is so special. Oh,
Yeah,
I
I
am eight
have.
chapters in and like just absolutely hooked. I was telling you, I bring this to Carline. I cannot wait to continue to rip through it. May is May's silly, but
Yeah,
this is like
Maysember, right?
Maysember, absolutely. But what an absolute treat. And I just love it's, I don't know, I'm such a production junkie, like, but I love knowing the ins and outs of like what it was like in the writing process and how this translates from your life and how you pulled inspiration from your daughters. And I'm so pumped that it is like 90s based.
Yeah.
I think I like literally held on by the threadiest of threads as a millennial, but like, and I'm holding on tight. I'm holding on. I think I read it on one website. I'm like, yep, I'm a millennial. But I cannot wait to continue to rip through this book and just escape in like a blast from the past and to continue to like think about what it is like, even, for I've got a 14-year-old and almost 12, well, almost 14, almost 12, and then double nines. But just, I don't know, the continued perspective that we all need to be reminded of, and like what a fun, delightful way to escape and travel back in time.
Yeah, and just I'm looking forward to having those mother-daughter book clubs, but it was also really fun to do a book club of boy moms that
Cool.
that they what they shared with me was, especially there's a scene in which sexual consent is a problem in the book,
Yeah.
and they were really grateful to have read this book because it took them back to their own experiences from when they were the Stacy like character and
Yeah.
afraid to say no or trying to push back and not getting heard. And they said that they were really inspired to have a conversation with their own sons about that not saying no is not the same as saying yes.
Oh,
And they were really grateful for this book for that reason. And actually, even my 16-year-old nephew read this book as an outside reading for his honors English class, and he was really grateful for the opportunity to see it from a female perspective, these situations that boys go into with girls, and they just can't know what's going on in the girl's head. Like,
no, because the girl's too afraid to say it.
mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Oh, I just got full body chills again. And like, we all want to have these conversations with our kids, but it's like, well, nothing's really spurring it to bring it up. And that's a hard one and it's a doozy, but like to have the gift of having it surface to you and be like, okay, let's do it. Like, this is fresh. I can do this. I can have this conversation because it is critically important.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love this so much. Okay. Where can people get this book?
Oh, so my website is jaimetowzen.com. You can find me on all the social media, but if you want to get absorbed, of course you can get it anywhere it's available. And I am so grateful for any reader, however they choose to get the book. I happen to have a special right now where I'm giving away copies of the audiobook if you're an audiobook listener. So you can check that out on my Instagram page, and I'm giving them away for free. So take advantage of that opportunity. But if you want to buy it, I beg you to consider buying it directly from your local independent bookstore. Go on in and they will order it for you. And that way you can support them so that they can stay open on Main Street. And if you don't want to buy it, I totally get that. It's a hard time economically for a lot of people. You can go to the library and ask them to order it as well. And that still supports the author and it encourages other people to be able to read it as well. So please support your local libraries and independent bookstores because we need them now more than ever in this country. So that's the best way to go about and get it if you can.
Oh my God. I feel your passion absolutely through the screen about that. I love that. You guys, we can do this. We can, get off the couch and as we're running around, pop into the local bookstore or the library because we really do need them now more than ever. Jaime, this has been an absolute pleasure. Your energy is so genuine and you are so lovely. And I really appreciate and admire what you have done with all that you've experienced in your life and the perspective that it has given you and like the beautiful, joyful, peaceful lens that you have put on it. And I see the work and the self-dedication that you've put in to get yourself to that place. And it clearly, when we talk about how it like translates just even like the peace and the joy throughout your day, look at all that you've done and how great that you felt along the way while life is still lifing, as you have mentioned, because it never stops. And like it's just a beautiful example to women really in any stage of life where they feel like they've just put themselves on the shelf for a little bit and like want to reconnect with themselves, whether in a major way to be, an author and a novelist, or just to be like, I just want to be on the list again. Yeah, it can come in so many ways, shapes, or form. And like this conversation truly has me just glowing. I feel so grateful for it and for your time. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Betsy. It's such a pleasure to talk to you about all of this. And I'm so honored that you asked me to be a guest on your show. I really hope that some women are inspired to make themselves a priority again, because they deserve as much peace and joy as I've been able to experience. So.
Absolutely. I know without a doubt. Ladies, if this episode has inspired you, please share it with those who are in your communities and in your life who also want and deserve this peace and joy that we talk about. Absolutely. Go out and get your copy. I can't wait to dive into the pool with Stacy. And I will be talking about it on my Instagram as I read along. And I'm so excited. It's one of my top listeners, and she's our babysitter every summer. And I'm like, Kelly, if you were out there, you got to go get this book. You're going to love it. I can't wait to tell everyone to go read it. I'm like, oh my God, Kelly's going to love this. Oh, Jaime, it's been such a pleasure. And I can't wait to watch you continue to do what you do.
Thank you so much, Betsy.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Well, that's the end of this episode, but promise me, you won't stop here with whatever it is you're feeling or dreaming about. I hope you leave today feeling empowered to live life just as you see fit. If this podcast was helpful to you, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. I genuinely just want to help women live the life they dream about. So if this type of content tracks with you, subscribe to this podcast or visit our website, writeyourownsstory.co, to download digital courses or to grab a journal and a mug to just dream in and dream with. It's your life, lady. Do you. And just remember, I'm rooting for you and you've totally got this.